listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
And I'm Aubrey Blank.
Hey, that's a new voice. Well, I should say a new voice in The Coffee Hour. Everybody hears you on the weekends and in the evenings as well. Aubrey, thanks so much for sitting in for Sarah today. Great to have you along as co-host.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We are headed to Germany today. We're headed to Wittenberg, which is kind of fun. Have you been to Wittenberg before?
I have not.
Okay, well, we get to go at least virtually. We get to talk with our friend, Dr. Weber, in just a moment. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting The Coffee Hour. You can find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Joining us today, the Reverend Dr. Wilhem Weber. He's the managing director of the International Lutheran Society of Wittenberg and the Old Latin School in Wittenberg. Dr. Weber, thank you so much for joining us on The Coffee Hour today.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
We are so eager to hear what's happening in Wittenberg and what's going on at the Old Latin School as well, to get a nice update of the things that are happening there. Before we even get into an update, for those who are not familiar with the Old Latin School, can you give us just a brief history and the purpose of the Old Latin School as it is today?
Wonderful. It's very fitting. On the 3rd of May, we celebrate the anniversary of the opening of the Old Latin School. In 2015, 3rd of May, all of Wittenberg was all excited because the Old Latin School, which had fallen to ruin, was reopened as a visitor center. And we, since then, have gone through quite a number of stages. The chapel is open most of the time. The various rooms are taken up by various people. And so we've had quite a lot of changing times, but it's been growing from strength to strength.
I heard that you had a holiday. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we are a bit of a socialist place, Workers' Day, 1st of May. Not celebrating any church holiday, so there's no church services going on. So we are quite happy as pastors that we can go out and just have fun on the bicycle. I rode down to Dabrun, about 10-kilometer drive, about 6 to 7 miles along the Elbe. Very beautiful at the moment. Swarms of swans and cranes and gray geese to be seen. And everything is lush and green because we've had good rains. You remember the last few times I've been complaining about the drought. That's broken. So we are very happy to have this beautiful spring around, and it was just a wonderful holiday.
So you had a nice holiday. Now it's back to work, and things are busy at the Old Latin School. Last time we talked, I believe we spoke about some of the Ukrainian refugees being served there in Wittenberg and at the Old Latin School. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, as you say, things are changing. This morning, I was given back 3 keys by Pastor Andrei Honchuruk. 3 families have moved on, found their own places to stay, and we are getting those rooms back to accommodate the students from the Luther Academy in Riga, which is due to come here next month. So we are excited about this. It also shows just that things are always in flux. Some of the Ukrainians are staying. They are staying on the 1st floor. Pastor Honchuruk himself and his family are also staying inside the house still. But we are having 5 new apartments next door, which are being furnished and made ready so that we can accommodate ever more guests and see that we can play a bigger and bigger role as we go along.
How has the Old Latin School been partnering with other organizations?
Our main partners are in the confessional Lutheran realm. Our sister churches, the Missouri Synod, of course, is a big role player. The ZELK, the independent Lutheran church body here which is built up mainly of old Lutherans in the various states, Lower Saxony, places like also in East Germany. It's been around since the introduction of the Union, but then also internationally, the ILC church bodies, like, for instance, the people back home in South Africa, South America, but also Asia. Very many visitors come from these places to see here. And we've had important meeting the beginning of this year to see how the various groups can cooperate even closer with the Old Latin School. Not just the ILC, the International Lutheran Council, which has a new General Secretary, Detlef Schulz, from Fort Wayne on its board, but also the Concordia universities, also the seminaries, of course, St. Louis and Fort Wayne. They've been very active all along, but we are trying to formalize the exchange of students, formalize visitor schedules, having people come here not just for workshops and organized seminars, but also for some own studies where people get off on a sabbatical, for instance, or work on their dissertation or some book. We've been very fortunate of having Professor Robert Kolb stay in the house the summer holidays. Now, this last 3 years, we are expecting him again next month. And people like Professor Art Just from Fort Wayne, and who's now in Spain, he also is very active here. So those are examples of people coming in, staying over, and making the best of our very strategic position here in the old Luther city of Wittenberg, which has wonderful libraries, free access, and just perfect working space. Just ask Robert Kolb about that, or Art Just for that matter.
Tell us a little bit more about how the Old Latin School serves as a nice, perhaps, retreat to step aside from the day-to-day responsibilities to work on a project like that, like a book or other sabbatical projects, or even to study for a season.
You see, we've got wonderful accommodations. President Harrison has really made the best of the situation here. We've had visiting quarters available all along since 2015. But he has also really worked hard to get us into the cellar, which was always a no-go area because it had no official access. And through his input, we've really come a long way, and we are very hopeful that this can be made accessible soon. That's a real comfortable zone where one can not just play darts or sort of like flick-flack soccer and just have a bit of a out time in this wonderful old atmosphere of sort of like a barrel cellar. We've also found that there are old passageways they were always blocked out because the houses now are two separate units. But because we bought 5 new apartments with the help of Missouri, we now have access to those cellars as well, and found that there's actually a passageway connecting our cellar with those. So that really is a wonderful way of making an escape route, which was always still required. And that is a coincidence, if you want to call it that, for us, because we didn't think that would be a spin-off of buying those 5 apartments. Those 5 apartments are really now space for couples who want to stay longer in our own private space. We've had the professor's apartment in our house all along. That is occupied by Pastor Honschuk at the moment. But now, if that was occupied, we didn't have such comfortable space for couples here. Professor Kolb, for instance, stayed in our little guest room all along. Now he'll be happy if he can get into one of those apartments next door. We are working very hard to have those furnished. I said that, and the beds are up. Next week, IKEA is coming and setting up the furnishings there as well. So one apartment is fully furnished already, and the 4th and 5th one, we are going ahead with the plans right at the moment.
We have more to learn in just a moment about what's happening at the Old Latin School. We'll get an update from Dr. Weber. We'll continue the conversation. I understand there's some acquisitions.
Yes.
Do you like to hang out in the library, Aubrey?
I do.
I kind of guessed that. So Aubrey probably is just eager to know about some of the acquisitions recently added to the library at the Old Latin School. We'll continue the conversation with Dr. Weber in just a moment. You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Aubrey Blank.
At Concordia University, Wisconsin, we believe you were created for a reason, to use your God-given gifts to help others, to live a life of self-sacrifice in a me-first world, to live a life that's uncommon. Whether you're taking one of 50-plus online programs or learning with us in person on the shores of Lake Michigan, you'll be equipped to make an uncommon impact. Learn more at cuw.edu. Concordia University, Wisconsin. Live uncommon.
Welcome back to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Aubrey Blank.
We are talking with Reverend Dr. Wilhem Weber. He's the managing director of the International Lutheran Society of Wittenberg and the Old Latin School in Wittenberg. And we've been getting some updates on what's happening there, some of the expansion. Recently acquired a number of apartments adjacent to the Old Latin School. And I'm intrigued, you discovered that some of the tunnels underneath there that connect to the building. What was it like discovering that? It seems like a major historical discovery.
Well, these things always work out. It shows how important connections are. We've been working quite closely with the architect Keitel over these, with the refurbishing and in the cellar, so that these things are done in a proper and rightful way. And he's been very, very helpful. By the way, he was born in one of the few hospitals which were owned by the old Lutheran Church in Gubin when his father was senior or chief surgeon at that place. And he was born there, and that's why he could never take on an academic career. He was an architect, but wanted to become a professor. But because of these connections, he was not able to do that. Well, it's good for us. We now have him here in Wittenberg. And one of his colleagues did his master's thesis on our cellar in the 1990s, when this thing was first refurbished in a sort of way, when the old house, which was Judenstrasse 38 and 39, was separated into two different blocks, so that then 8, the Old Latin School as we know it, was then made one unit, and 39 was housing a bank, private flats, and an attorney's office. And that is why we have attorney's office. Of course, this is very strange, because now suddenly we got offered the whole of Judenstrasse 39. That was by mistake, because 39 was not on sale as a whole, only certain units. Well, we got hold of those units, and now the architect's colleague who did his master's thesis remembered that in the early 90s, he had done a paper on how the two buildings were connected in old passageways. And they were all closed off, concrete and everything. And so there was nothing to see. And he took some pictures of the old bank safes, which were then opened up after the change to democracy here in East Germany. And it shows all the bank vaults open with little candles put in there. Now that's really our own criminal investigative story on its own. But we don't go that way. We just say that passageway is now ours, and we are happy to connect our cellar to the outside, and that people can have a second escape way and making it officially accessible, which is wonderful for us. And, Keitel knows everybody in town. He knows all the handymen. anybody who knows the situation in Germany knows that you can't get a handyman for anything. Well, Keitel does get those very quickly and very suitably for us, so we can have it.
Wow. It's pretty cool. So I heard and understand that you have some recent acquisitions and additions that you got to your library. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, I'm very proud about those. Some of you might know that we inherited when Bishop Schöne passed away. We inherited his old Luther works, the Jena edition. These are original Luther works published at the Jena University many, many years ago as faithful collections of Luther's works, academic collections. And these are originals worth a whole sack of money. And so we were happy to have that. But President Harrison has also been very helpful, not just with acquiring those, because he had told Schöne, now that would be something wonderful for the Old Latin School. That's how we got it, because he pressed this. And we have been able to acquire a number of old volumes of the Concordia, Book of Concord, the Lutheran Confessions from 1580, old versions from the Heidelberg edition. We are now looking forward to get one from Dresden. We've got the old Kurfürstenbibel, which is the Elector's Bible, it's a Lutheran copy of the Luther's translation of the Bible, Old and New Testament, with wonderful prints, which was put on sale in the century after Luther died by the Elector, so that people would have a collection of the faithful translations, because of course there were many others running around, and this was a version which was, because it was now printed in masses, it was relatively cheap. And so it is not from the 16th century, but from the 17th, where we have this version from. And there are other collections. So we are looking forward to supplying these kind of books also for the apartments, perhaps more on a more recent and modern versions of the CPH books, that this becomes a place where people will be able to find confessional Lutheran theology, which you don't normally find in bookstores here in East Germany.
I understand you also acquired some artwork as well. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, you perhaps know that we have hanging in the foyer an original by Thomas Schmidt. He's a local artist who's also a regular guest at our Stammtisch. This is 150 meters by 150, sort of like a square volume, and with depicting Luther, the Pope Leo, and other parts of Lutheran traditions on there, like the various books and also the dates, etc., etc. It's nice to have it. It's because it's modern art, but then we also have copies of Cranach's works. These are only copies, but we are happy to have them. Like, for instance, the electors, the three electors, Frederick the Wise, John the Steadfast, and also the benevolent John Frederick, and also John the last one, John Frederick the benevolent. We have him with the various reformers, Luther, Melanchthon, Bugenhagen, etc., etc., also on there. So this is nice to have this. We also have here at the back behind me, you see the Cranach altar from Weimar. We are in the process of having that also printed. President Harrison had the idea that we actually do it also like the altar in Weimar, having a front and a back one. We have only got the front imagery in high resolution, and we are still waiting for the pictures at the back. Everybody who knows the Kranach altar in the Wittenberg church knows the front, what belongs to evangelical divine service, preaching, baptism, confession, and Lord's Supper, of course. But not many know that at the back we have the risen Christ and also Moses and bronze serpent and also the offering of Isaac by Abraham depicted there. So these altar pieces are shown from the front and from the back, and we want this to replicate this altar here as well in the Old Latin School. Let's see when we get that done. It'll be by the next interview. Hopefully we'll have it done by then.
Oh, wow. That's very neat. Very neat. At the Old Latin School, how do you incorporate daily prayer and corporate worship? What is that like?
Yeah, we don't have that on a public basis. I am practically alone on the ground floor here in the mornings. So I read my devotions alone. I go in the chapel alone. The Ukrainians who are in the house, still they go to integration course all morning. They leave the house with the children early in the morning. When my wife also goes to school, she's a teacher at the evangelical school as well. So the house is practically empty until after lunch. And so the Ukrainians then have German classes at around 4 o'clock again in the afternoon. And in the evenings, they've got confirmation classes, Bible studies, and these kind of things in Ukrainian, of course, because our communication is very poor, although we've been there for a while. You perhaps remember the name Natalia Zubritska. She was here. She ran a language school back home in Kiev, and she did translations for the Lutheran Academy in Riga. She was great for translation because she was fluent in English. She's now living in St. Louis. You might want to interview her also if there's a chance. But the others who are here, we struggle to communicate. In writing, short messages which are then translated on the phone, that works. But we have regular divine services on Sundays. Public, there are quite a number of Ukrainians, more than 60 coming in for that. So we are happy to have those Sunday services. We also have German and English services, but with far less people. But they are for daily devotions. We are looking forward to the summer when actually English services then again happen at lunch hour all over town, but this not in the Old Latin School.
With just about a minute left, any other updates to share with us today?
Yeah, when you ask me like that, I must think we've got Stammtisch tonight. We've got, we are looking forward to Corpus Christi. They are a youth gathering of 300 plus students from all over. That's wonderful. And we are also looking for Luther Land Tour in August, September. So there are big meetings coming up, and I'm having the baptism of my grandchild on Sunday, and I'm also rejoicing very much for that. That's something I'm looking forward to.
Well, thanks be to God. How can we stay informed on what's going on at the Old Latin School?
You can follow me on Facebook. The Old Latin School has got its own posting. We've also have a newsletter every month with MailChimp. If you want a recording, it's a reference to it, and then it's about how as it goes. Otherwise, come and visit us, and you'll really get to see it.
Our guest today, the Reverend Dr. Wilhem Weber. He's the Managing Director of the International Lutheran Society of Wittenberg and the Old Latin School in Wittenberg. Dr. Weber, thank you so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour and providing the update for us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a great pleasure. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Eddie Bates.
I'm Aubrey Blank.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.